It's time for Dirt Daily, and I am back in the shop, finally getting back to work on the Flatfender. But first, this video is brought to you by onX Off-Road. onX Off-Road is a mapping app. You put it on your phone. It helps you find off-road trails wherever you are in America. You can sign up now. You can use the 4xFred, 4xFred-24 discount code. Or if you watch their website or their social media outlets, onX Off-Road often has special sales around the holidays, Black Friday sales. So check those out. That you can get a really deep discount if you want to sign up for the onX Off-Road app. I use it all the time, whether I'm looking for trails or trying to find my way off of trails. I was just in Moab recently, and we used it to get through some of the trails that I haven't been on a lot recently. So it was great to use. So check it out, onX Off-Road. What are we doing today on the Flatfender? Well, I got this Flatfender at the start of the year and I was super motivated on it. I got a lot of stuff done to it through like the first half of the summer. Then I went back to Michigan and I worked on that CJL10 project, the CJ10 with the flatbed on the back and on the JL chassis. Well, I came home from that and motivation was just in the dumper. I just wasn't getting anything done. I wanted to work on the CJ10, I wanted to work on this, I wanted to work on other stuff around the shop, and I just kind of got distracted. But I set myself a goal. I said, I am going to have this done, not done, but running and driving by the end of the year. So that's like 2 months away. We're running out of time for 2024. But it doesn't really need a lot. And what I mean by running and driving means I want to be able to turn the key, the engine starts, put it in gear, it moves under its own power, and I can touch the brakes and it will stop. May not be 100% perfect by the end of the year, but if I can make it run and drive and move it around, it's that much more fun, that much more motivating to keep working on it through the rest of winter. So today's project is cooling system. I've made this engine run already in the past, but I had pulled the radiator out to work on things and also to flush the radiator out and also to flush the engine block out to try and clean everything and get all the rust and old coolant and water out of it. But it's time to put it all back together. So the radiator, I want to put that back in. The thermostat needs replaced because it didn't even have a thermostat in it. So I got a new thermostat and I have some other things I want to do to it. So let's get to work and get this thing cooler. It's already cool, but let's get it so that it will cool. And then we're that much closer to driving it by the end of the year. Let's get to work. Let's start with the thermostat of the engine. This is the thermostat. I got this thermostat from Vintage Jeepers. It's a website that sells lots of Jeep parts, and the guy that runs it is a guy named Sal, and he's super helpful. I can message him online. He's on Facebook, and he's also on his company website, and he's a good guy to buy parts from. What is a thermostat, and what does it do, and why do we care? Actually, this Jeep did not have a thermostat in it when I took the engine apart. I didn't take the engine completely apart, but I kind of dove into the engine to get it running. This is the elbow that goes on the top of the engine. It mounts right here like this. And the way it works is it has a thermostat, well, it should have had a thermostat, that lives up inside there. What does a thermostat do? Well, a thermostat controls temperature. This is similar to what's in your house. In fact, let's take the house idea and say that your engine block is your house. And the thermostat helps control the temperature in the house or in the engine. Because what it does, it's basically like a door, and it opens and lets the coolant, the water and antifreeze, flow through the engine block. So think of your engine as a house, and the combustion of the engine is like a wood stove. And if you have a bunch of fire going in that wood stove, it'll heat up your house. But unlike your house, which you probably don't need to open a door to cool it down, the engine, you might not want it to get too hot from the combustion that's happening in there. And that would be like throwing tons and tons of firewood into your wood stove, and it's making so much heat that you're worried that the house is getting too hot. Not usual, but what the thermostat does is like cracking open a window or opening a door to kind of let the cool air flow through that house. Picture this. Your water pump is like a fan in the window of your house, and the thermostat is like your front door. And if it's too hot in there, the fan is constantly running, but the air is not really going to flow through. So what you do is you open the front door, and then the air flows through the house and out the front door. In this case, the water pump is flowing coolant through the house, the engine, and the thermostat is the front door. And it knows, depending on what type of thermostat you get and what temperature it's set at, it knows what temperature to open and allow coolant to flow through. Thus, the coolant is not just sitting in the engine, it's actually flowing through the engine, and it's taking that heat out of the engine and putting it into the radiator, which is then cooling the coolant down. So, how does this little guy work? Well, there's a little brass nodule here, and when that heats up, this one's set to 160 degrees, then it opens up some flaps in here and it allows coolant to flow through. Now, some people use, there's different types of thermostats. This one already has a small bleeder built into it. Some people like to drill an 1/8-inch hole into the thermostat to allow basically the air to escape the engine. When you're filling up the engine, this will be at the top of the engine and air can get trapped underneath it. But the one from Vintage Jeeper has this very little minute hole. You can probably just barely see it right there. It kind of goes in and through, and it allows air to escape. Thus, you don't get an air bubble trapped in the top of your engine when you're filling it up. There's also this spacer, and this is designed to hold the thermostat up into the elbow of this elbow that I'm putting on the top of the engine. Also, if you look on this, it should say towards radiator. So this makes sure you don't put it in the wrong way. This is going to sit there. Basically, that pointy part is pointing up towards the radiator. So this will go up in here like this. And this is kind of spring loaded. So once it's up in there, it will hold everything pretty good. I'm going to take these 3 bolts off. The thermostat drops down inside there. The spacer presses down in, and everything is locked in place. And then there is a gasket that you put over between the elbow and the engine block to seal everything up. Some people put these gaskets on dry. I have some stuff. Where is that stuff? Here we go. This is Super 300 Pharma gasket from Permatex. What I'll do is I'll kind of slather it on there on both sides. Make sure that the engine block is nice and clean. I might even scrape it with a razor blade to make sure it doesn't have any little bumps on it to keep it from sealing up good. Make sure the bottom of the elbow is nice and clean, and then we'll bolt this all together, and then the thermostat and thermostat housing or elbow is all ready to go. The top of this is kind of crusty. If this was completely worn away, I would probably replace it. Basically, you're going to want to have this enough shoulder on here that when you put a radiator hose on there, you can get a good hose clamp around there and it doesn't leak past any of it. So it's a little bit crusty, but I'm not too concerned that it's going to fail. So it looks pretty good. All right, let's get some of this gasket sealant on here and then we'll bolt this into place. Nice and tight. I was on the Vintage Jeeper website ordering the thermostat. I also ordered a new radiator cap. And then I noticed that they sell water pumps. And the water pump is like $70, maybe $75. And I don't know that I need a water pump, but I was like, you know what? If I'm changing these other parts of the coolant system, and it's right there, and the radiator's already moved, and the fan's already removed, I might as well get another water pump just in case. And this water pump's kind of cool. It's a little bit different than the one that's on the engine currently because it has two ports right here and here that you could plumb, like say a heater hose. Like if you put a heater box or a heater in this Jeep, you could plumb it right off of that. So I thought that was kind of neat. Not that this Jeep's going to get a heater, but you never know down the road. And also I was like, well, $75 is probably worth spending. And at the worst, I'll take that water pump off and it'll look fine and I'll just put it back on. But I'm like, I kind of have it. And so I ordered it and it showed up. It comes with a new water pump gasket. It comes with plugs for these two ports in case you don't want to put a heater hose on it right now, which I probably will not do since I don't have a heater, and then it's just less stuff. There are some things to notice. There's a hole right through this front section that there's a mounting bolt that runs all the way through. So this whole surface back here, you want to make sure that's clean. And I'm going to take the old water pump off and we'll see. Basically the way this works is this is run off of your belt, your fan belt. Your fan bolts onto the front of this. This is probably the inlet for your water pump. Water goes in there from your radiator and then through the block and comes back out by the thermostat housing. So let's remove the old one and see what type of shape it's in. All right, I'm gonna just pop off here. There it goes. Well, this water pump doesn't really look bad at all. It's a little bit crunchy when I spin it, but like all the impellers look okay. So this one's probably fine, and I probably didn't need to take it off, but I did. So now I will replace it and put this one in the shelf for later, or maybe use it on a different project. This guy is going to go right there, just like that. I'm going to grab a little wire brush and clean that seal surface there, the gasket surface, so it's nice and clean. And I'm going to look inside and see if anything looks bad. Everything looks pretty good. So I'm going to clean that up a little bit and then we'll put the new water pump on. Our water pump gasket is going to go on right here. And once again, I'm going to use some gasket sealer. There's a lot of different schools of thought on whether or not using something like this on the gasket is the right way to go. I think it's a good idea to have it because it helps hold the gasket in place and helps it seal up against any imperfections. Some people use like RTV on the gaskets. Some people use some sort of spray, or there's all types of different products out there to do this job. Does it make a difference? I don't know. I think it's a good idea to put it on. Let's see here. We're going to set that guy right on there. Get it all lined up with the bolt holes. And then I will come in on this side. Paint some more on here. This water pump had brass bolts holding it in place. And my first thought was, I wonder if the bolt holes in the block are like passed through. Like, is there some reason why they would have brass bolts? So I took a little screwdriver and I poked it into the block holes, and none of the holes passed through. And I mean, one of the bolts is steel, but the other three were brass. Not really sure why. It would like help repel corrosion, but unless the water pump is leaking, it really shouldn't be corroding. I don't know if there's some sort of temperature thing going on with that, but I'm going to reuse them. I have them. They seem to fit good. They seem to be the right length. And so I'm going to reuse them. So I'm going to put this water pump back on the block. And then once it's on the block, I will put the plugs in for the heater hose ports. Be sure and get all your bolts started before you tighten them up. These are the two plugs to go into the two ports on the top of the water pump. I'm going to seal those up with a little Teflon tape and screw those in. All right, double check all of these bolts are tight. Give them one last little torque. And we can move on to putting the radiator back in. Water pump is in, thermostat housing is in. Now it's time for the radiator. This radiator is not perfect, but it looks all right. I filled it up with water from a garden hose and flushed it out a bunch. I also flushed the engine and the radiator with some evaporust just to kind of break down all that old garbage. And then I flushed it out multiple times, so hopefully there's nothing clogging up the coolant passages in the engine. At the bottom of the radiator, there are some pieces of rubber on these two studs. You can see one right there. That's the old rubber. Here is a new piece of rubber. I thought about going to town and buying some rubber washers, and then I saw this like half-inch thick rubber mat on the floor of my shop, so I just cut a chunk out of that, and I'm going to replace both of those on the bottom. You can still hear a little bit of stuff inside the radiator. I've turned it upside down and shook it a bunch to try to get everything out, but I think it's going to be what it's going to be. The cool thing about the radiator is that it does not mount to the front grille. It mounts to the front cross member of the chassis. So that's why you want to put the rubber on there so it has a little bit of flex. But if I have to pull this grill out to change like the headlights or the turn signals or do any other extra wiring, this can stay in there. This will actually be attached to the chassis. And it really only connects with those two studs on the bottom, and then this tab at the top right there by the inlet goes to that rod that runs back to the firewall. So I'm going to put this other rubber piece on. Take this junky one off. These are so hard, like they don't even flex. They're just kind of crusty. Ah! throw that in the trash. Slide this new piece on here. And then I clean these threads up a little bit. Might even put a little bit of anti-seize on them so that we don't have any cross-threading issues. And then we'll drop this in there and bolt the radiator into place. Set this down in here. There we go. And then this little guy. Drops right in there. And we're pretty good to go. Before I tighten down the radiator into place, I'm going to bolt the fan to the water pump, just so I have a little bit of flexibility to get my hands in there. This guy, I marked it when I took it off, so I knew which was the front. This will go right down in here. I don't think you can get the radiator out with the fan in there. So, but it definitely is easier to install the fan with the radiator loose, so you can reach your hand in front of everything. All right. Have a little bit of an issue. I got the radiator bolted in. One thing I didn't think about was when I went to that little bit thicker fresh rubber, the fan would hit the bottom of the fan shroud. But I tightened it up till that rubber was really squished, and then I came in and I massaged a little bit of the bottom of the fan shroud. And now it spins no problem. So I can put the belt on. This was my old radiator cap. You can see most of the gasket is broken. It's kind of crusty and junky. So the same time I ordered the thermostat and the water pump, I also got a new radiator cap. So that guy will go right in there and fit just like factory. What is left? I have the water pump on, thermostat housing, radiator in, new radiator cap. Oh, hoses. So the old hose on the top was just a straight hose. I need to track one of those down. Let's grab our tape measure. So this hose is going to be, it looks like 13 inches would do it. 12 inches would be okay, but 13 would be better. And that's 1.5 inches. And then the bottom one has a bend in it. And that one looks like it would be about 12 inches with a bend in it. So I think my local auto parts store carries that lower hose, and they probably have a piece that I can get on the top. So I'm gonna run to town and find some radiator hose. I got radiator hoses. The top hose, I had to have them custom cut it. The bottom piece that they had in stock is a bit longer than I need. So I'm going to mock this up and then trim it down so I know it fits in there good. Let's see here. I think if I go about halfway through this decal, I might need to take a little bit more off. It looks like I chewed it off with a beaver. I wonder if I can get a pair of scissors and clean that up. There we go. That's a lot nicer. And then upper and lower radiator hoses are installed. Thermostat is installed. Water pump is installed. Radiator is back in. New radiator cap. I closed the petcock on the bottom. I am going to put this clean bin underneath the radiator just in case something was left open or a hose leaks. And then I'm going to dump some coolant in here. I bought the 50-50 mix coolant, which is probably dumb because you're basically buying water. But I was always told that if you put water in your radiator, you should put in distilled water. I don't have distilled water. I don't even know where I would buy distilled water around here these days. And honestly, I'm not really sure why. I guess distilled water has less impurities. I know that if I take hose water from my shop and I put it in the radiator, the water around here has a lot of hard material, a lot of calcium in it. So that could cause buildup in your engine. It's raining today. I thought about just collecting a bucket of rainwater and dumping that in. I assume rainwater is pretty clean, but who knows with all the stuff that's in the air these days. I don't know. So I just bought this stuff. It was 50-50. It's the green. It's nothing special. It's pre-diluted. It's probably dumb because basically I'm buying half of this just full of water. I don't know if buying like a jug of water from like a grocery store would be the same as distilled water. I'm going to put a gallon in and see if anything leaks out. I can hear air bubbles. I think I got the petcock closed correctly. There's definitely air coming out of the system. I didn't actually check the book to see how much coolant this system should take. I got 3 gallons, so it's not a very big engine, not a very big radiator. Hopefully that's enough. And that 1 gallon filled it all the way up. That doesn't seem right. Oh no, it's going down. Ooh, ooh. I also have a drip on the top tank of the radiator. Ah, bummer. That means it's not even under pressure and I already have a drip out of the top tank of the radiator. So I might be taking this to the radiator shop or taking it off and trying to fix that. I found a leak in the upper tank of the radiator, and I looked online to find out what it would cost to replace this radiator, get a new one. You can get them, aftermarket ones, probably $300 to $500, depending on if you're getting a brass one or a aluminum one or what. So I was like, well, maybe I can just fix it. I didn't really do the best job. In fact, I did a terrible job of trying to fix it. I didn't pull the radiator out to try and fix it. I just tried to fix it while it was bolted in place. It wasn't getting hot enough, and I don't know, it wasn't clean enough to even start with. So basically, my soldering job right here was garbage. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this radiator out, and I'm going to take it to a radiator shop and ask them to take it apart, clean it, rot it out, and see if it's still worth using or if it's junk. Hopefully they can tell me quickly if it's in good enough shape to be rebuilt. I think it should be. I mean, it's a cool brass radiator. And here you can see all of the solder that I attempted, and it all dripped down here and it just made a giant mess. I didn't fix it. I may have made it worse, because I was heating all of this up where it's already soldered together, and the solder that I was trying to apply wasn't going in there, and the solder that was in there may have been melting out. So, plus, here's the other thing. Working on radiators with solder, which is basically a bunch of lead, and then it's burning off steam from the coolant, all that stuff's bad for you. Like guys that work on radiators, they don't live long. They're not like old men, or if they are, they're really crusty old men who are impervious to just about anything. So it's probably not really healthy that I was burning this off and breathing all that smoke, but I tried it, and I think I've decided that I am not the best at soldering old radiators. I'd like to be better, but for now, I want to get this thing fixed. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to punt and take this to a radiator shop and see if they can rebuild it. And if they can't rebuild it, or if it costs more than buying a new one, I may just say this radiator is finished and we'll get a new one online. But I'd like to get it rebuilt, because why throw it away if I can get it rebuilt and reusable? And people have rebuilt and reused radiators for a long times. Plus, I mean, you can see there's, if you look real close, there's like repairs on this side as well, right down in there. So it's probably due for a refresh. Unfortunately, I had this radiator out of the Jeep for like 2.5, 3 months while I was back east, and I could have dropped it off and been like, make it perfect or go through it. But now it's like close to the end of the year and I don't have a radiator, which is fine. I have plenty of other things to work on the Jeep while it doesn't have a radiator in it, but sure wish I would have thought of that sooner. That's kind of how projects go. All right, that's it for this Dirt Daily. I'm going to go to the radiator shop, drop off this radiator, find out what they tell me, and hopefully I'm back with it going back in this thing before too long. But that's it for this Dirt Daily. We'll see you guys next time. Oh, I did save all the coolant. It's going to go back in. Come on, buddy. Let's go get you fixed.